phrase I hadn't noticed before, was it the internal metaphors? They're almost defining human as the internalisation of metaphor.
I don't see why the issue of can a person love a robot was even like a moral question. I was kind of confused on that because, isn't that possible? I mean, that people become attached, to things that they own, right? I mean, we become attached to material things anyways, don't we? I mean,
it's a semantic term. You would call that a love.
The issue was the opposite of that, though.
I'm still lost on the definition of love, though. Because, I know there's research coming out now. There's a person in UNC Chapel Hill who's doing a lot of research on trying to change the actual meaning of love and taking it out of the context that they just explained and putting it in more of a bio, feedback. It's just this little thing that happens that creates all of this neural, pretty much junction in your head that happens, and that's why you're able to love. And it's not so much this relationships and everything, which is what they're more talking about, but love is something that's like a feedback in your head that happens. It's something that happens in your brain. It's not something that happens out in the real world.
Was there a comment over there? No? You've given up.
No. I'm just curious how you're receiving it. Then we'll work with these responses and questions and problems. So rather than mind jumping in and directing it too much.
Well, to that end, with the definition of love, there are human beings, there's sociopaths and psychopaths who literally cannot feel emotion, or they can't process that, yet they also have a subconscious. So I don't know, define love as the idea of what can create a subconscious when an artificial being sort of seems ludicrous, because it wouldn't be that, because human beings can exist without that emotion and still have a subconscious.
Patrick's leading this one.
Sure, we'll just come around this way. I'm very bad with names, so Stephen and then.
I really like the question she posed about responsibility. If you're going to create something that is, as far as we can tell, in every way human, basically, and can love you selflessly, then even though we made it, do we have the same responsibility to love that, a parent has the responsibility to love and take care of their child, even if they don't really benefit from the child?
This is the fundamental question in artificial intelligence, which is, if I create an artificial duck and it lives its whole life as a duck, it eats like a duck, it looks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, defecates like a duck, is it a real duck? And do I have a responsibility to that thing because it's not real or because it's real? It's the fundamental AI question. Everyone's worth it. Go on, Anthony, you were first.
I think what he's doing at the end of the clip, and he's kind of disregarding what the lady says, or at least providing kind of a shortcut answer to it. I think that's necessary, because when you start considering the human condition in light of AI, you can kind of sort of infinite regress, and you can take whatever perspective you want to consider love or any other human emotion, or however that impacts any other human emotion, and you can spend lifetimes, forever, working that through, because it's incredibly complex. There's no simple answer. But at some point you have to cut it off.
But we'll sort it out this semester.
Yeah, we'll have the answer. We'll have the answer in 8 weeks before the Australians.
I'm actually going to kind of change the topic. I've seen the film before, and my personal view is looking at it now, how dated it really is. They're having these advanced pieces of technology already, these AI structures, that they're now just looking at a moral choice, its moral aspect. When we look at our society today, we are stuck on that before we even try to attempt these sophisticated AIs.
Those would have been discussed.
I think on the subject of can a robot, can humans love robots? And I think that we need to consider the idea of the uncanny valley. If a person, the idea that people find something that is so remotely human and yet not disturbing, I think it sort of shoots the idea of a realistic human-esque robot that can love and is loved by humans. I think it shoots that idea in the foot because, you know, by trying to do that and trying to be super realistic and everything, and not quite not just coming so close to being human that it barely isn't, it just barely isn't.
So we'll talk about the uncanny valley during the course.
Why don't you go first? If you haven't talked yet,
that is kind of what I was thinking, is what you said about how it's not a moral question. To me, if you're able to create, and it goes along with the uncanny valley, if you're able to create a life form that selflessly loves, that is the perfect 12-year-old boy after 20 years when it's still a 12-year-old boy and you're freaked out by it, it's still a 12-year-old boy, but it still selflessly loves you. Like, to me, that is a moral question. You basically created a life form, and then you're going to psychologically damage and torture it by locking it in a closet.
But how would you know that it was actually loving you? It wasn't just some simulation of phrases I was saying to make it seem like it's loving you.
That's the dumb question, yes. We're going to have to wrap this up as we're running out of time, I'm afraid. We're getting to the end.
One of the nice things that we can do here, since this is being recorded, is I'll go back and listen more closely to your responses, and then I'll try to formulate the questions for you in various ways. One real quick thing to think about is think about the tenses of your verbs, okay? When we're talking about love, we often will say, we think about love as this thing that doesn't change over time, that it's just a permanent thing, love, right? And so we think that whatever love is now, it always was before, and it will remain the same now for the future. So one of the things that we do in literary criticism a lot is we try to foreground the history of things. We have fancy vocabulary for that, but we basically say, you know, what was love in the 19th century? Right? What was love on Tuesday in 1872? Right? So what we try to do is we try to historicize the things that we talk about, rather than just assuming that these things like love or consciousness persist through time without any change at all. And that'll be a crucial way of thinking that will develop as we go. Okay? So that sort of speaks to your question. You know, is love justice, the kind of thing? And one other quick thing that we'll talk about is the difference in the different vocabularies that we use. So I'm going to be constantly drawing attention to the languages that we use. There's a certain kind of language that we use when we think about everything as tools. And when we think about things as tools, we often think about objects. Okay? But when we're involved in the world and we're just kind of moving through the world, not paying very much attention to what we're doing because our mind is elsewhere, we often aren't attuned to the world as specific objects that are kind of arranged out there in space. So we'll be talking about those kinds of differences as we go. Okay.
All right, that's really cool. This is going to be fascinating, the way of talking about things differently, because my students are used to my way of talking, English students used to more Patrick. This is what we want, this kind of different thing. One thing I want you all to do by Thursday, if possible, I want you all to go into Canvas and just complete your profiles. Just put your name in, put a photo up perhaps, and maybe put a bit of biographical information about yourselves. Just create your own little space. Have a look around Canvas. One thing I was thinking we could do, they're right on the front page of Canvas, ready to go, 2 discussion groups. Now, I don't want to start a long discussion here. What I would like you to do is all the students from the English department, I want you to pick a piece of technology you think is important from the past or the future. Could be robots, could be a printing press, could be a pen, could be sunglasses. Something you think is important, just say what it is and why. All of the HCI students, there's a different discussion group. I want you to pick a book or a film that you think has been important, that's changed us as humans in some way, and put that in there. And the HCI students, you can respond to the English students about the technology, and the English students can respond to what the HCI students say about books and literature. Okay? Keep them short, 1 or 2 sentences. This is not, I'm not grading this. This is more of a way for you to start talking to each other a little bit, okay? So just pick something fun, write a sentence or 2, okay? Do this for Thursday. On Thursday, we'll probably carry on the discussion of the film a little bit. What we'll also do, we'll talk about what you've written here a little bit, and then we'll start talking about AI. Any questions, comments? Anyone got any questions?
Like, so what exactly